we could be alone between city lights. We don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. It's very good to be... it worked. It's very good to be here with you today. Hopefully, we will have a solid stream today. You may remember that last Sunday's... Was it Sunday or Monday? I think it was Monday. We had some internet problems. They crapped out. I've put the dropped frame counter. This is... We're gonna be watching the network status live, folks. It's up there. We're gonna be. You can experience it with me. I just do that for my own little amusement, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's good to be with you, though. It's good to be with you. I think things are okay. I started the stream 10 minutes early. And was streaming, zero. You can see here, 0 dropped frames for 10 whole minutes. So. There you go. We're gonna try to what is this? We're gonna try and have a good time. We are gonna have a good time. Okay, we're good. I had some tacos this morning, some breakfast tacos. There was some cilantro in there. I just want to make sure I'm not going into a stream with like cilantro in my teeth. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Very good to have you here. This is the European stream. I do this stream on Sunday afternoons, my time, so that the Europeans can tune in without it being the middle of the night. And so the question asked in the Discord was, "How's your metric coming along?" I've been practicing my. Damn it! NVIDIA, you're killing me. Hold on. There's always going to be a technical problem. Hold on. Why? Just stay on the same camera. Always. Oh, there we go. Wonderful. I'm doing real good though because I'm getting better and better at Celsius. Europeans and everyone else in the world. I say Europeans. Everyone uses Celsius. Really, almost everyone in the world except the United States. I'm getting better and better. I'm pissing off my wife. I'm pissing her off though. I'll be like, oh, it's really warm today. She's like, oh yeah, what's the temperature? And I'll be like 24. And she'll be like, can you say Celsius? Can you just say, that's like the one consolation she wants, is if I'll just say 24 Celsius, it would all be okay. I'm doing good though. Doing good. It's a good time of year to learn. I'm learning to spang and I'm learning Celsius. I'm tired of hearing temperature in Celsius. And, you know, like when it comes to soldering, I kind of know my temperatures, right? 300 is 300 Celsius. That's like a low soldering temperature. 350 to 400 is like a medium to high. 450 is a high soldering temperature. I got it. You know, other temperatures. Millimeters is no problem, Bloods. I'm down with millimeters, centimeters, even meters. Why would you need to know Celsius? That's Rhodey FPV. Because I am a citizen of the globe. There are people in my Discord server from Europe and other countries, other regions. So I just thought, you know, no, Bloods FPV. He's a person, Mike Bergman. I like to experience new things sometimes. Anyway, I got it though. I'm down. 0 is freezing. Got it. Somewhere between 5 and 10 degrees, you're going to wish you had a jacket. Somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees, it's okay as long as you're in the sunshine. You're good in a t-shirt. Maybe a little bit of a jacket. And then somewhere between like 16 and 19 degrees, it's pretty good. You're all right. And then somewhere between 19 and 24, 25 is definitely t-shirt weather. And then above 25, I don't know yet because it hasn't been the summer yet. So I don't know what anything above 24 or 25 feels like. That's it. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about FPV, and we're here to talk about you. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. We're here to take your questions. Your questions here in the chat. I'll be taking your questions, like this one from Hassan Abid. Can you recommend me 5-inch props to my 5-inch quad using the Titan XL5? That's an interesting question. Let's get that question in just a second. Hassan Abid, we're going to get your question in just a second. That's about right. I think I know this guy. Wow, okay, so there's a lot going on in this picture. That's a big-ass battery to be stuck to the side of your head. Those are some old goggles. He doesn't have antennas on. I'm not sure what's going on here with the solar panel, or is this an antenna? There's a lot going on here in this picture. But I do think I know that guy. I'll be taking questions in the chat. Absolutely. I will also be taking questions here in the Discord server. These beautiful people. These are the special people. These people here. These are my patrons. They get a whole half of my screen because they pay me money every month. And that's that's fair. That's fair. You taking your questions over here. Thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys for being... You know what also? Thank you guys for just being so awesome. Every time I hear somebody say, man, subscribing... The Discord server alone makes Bardwell's Patreon worth it. I'm so thankful to you guys for making it such a wholesome, helpful, positive community. I'd like to think that, I had something to do with that. But frankly, not much. I just was the little rock that started the avalanche, and you guys were the boulders. That's not the best analogy. Thank you, guys. You want to hit the $ down here and leave a super chat? You can. I'll read those a little later in the stream. That's the best way to make sure I get to your message, though. So let's get this question now from Hassan Abid. Is my chat plugin working today? Hassan Abid. Yes, it is. JB, could you recommend me a 5-inch prop to my 5-inch quad? Now, what's interesting about this question is that Hassan has the Titan XL5. The iFlight Titan XL5 is a chunky boy. It's a chunky boy. It's a thick boy. 820 grams. I reviewed it. It was 820 grams. And my opinion, now you didn't ask me for my opinion of this quad, but I'll share it anyway. My opinion of this quad was that it was heavy enough that I didn't really like the way it flew. The dropped frame counter is only going to be... Oh, that's my bad. Oh, I see the problem. When I go to the... I see. When I go to the comment overlay, that disappears. Oh, that's interesting. That's a shame. I can fix that. Hold on. Can I just drag this out? Can I make this? There we go. I don't want that. I don't want that. Oh. All right, we're going to... That's not the best. What if I put it over here? No, I don't like that either. Okay, sorry. Hold on. Okay. We can't... There we go. So it's a thick boy. But iFlight's response was that it was designed to be durable. And I was like, oh, okay. It's still not my favorite, but I guess if you're trying to make a heavy, durable quad for beginners, fine. So the prop selection for this guy is going to have to take into account its additional weight. Now, what prop do they... A safe thing to do is always to just use whatever prop that they ship it with, because they've presumably designed it and tuned it in some way for that prop. So let's just get a standard Nazgul F5 propeller. Well, what does that mean? What's a Nazgul F5 propeller? Nazgul F5 tri-blade propeller. What is this? What is like the spec of this prop? What's the 3.5 pitch? So this is a 5-inch by 3.5 pitch prop. So we could start with just about any 5 by 3.5 prop. Now that's going to be a little confusing because a lot of manufacturers don't advertise their prop spec as clearly as you would wish. They'll just say something like Ethics S3. Okay, what's an S3? Well, it does say here, pitch 3.1 inch. Oh, okay, that's good. That's useful. Ethics S4. Pitch, we know the pitch, 3.7. So you could pick something like the Ethics S4 prop, which is a 5 by 3.7. And you could work that logic down the line, trying to find a similar prop. But the real question is, can we do better? Can we do better? I think that for a heavy quadcopter, when I had a very heavy quadcopter once upon a time, it was the Catalyst Machine Works Bang God, and it came in around 850, I think, grams, maybe even a little more with a GoPro. And I ended up using much higher pitch props. I used a 51499, so a 4.9, so a 5 by 5 almost pitch. And the thinking was that I need more thrust in order to counteract the weight, right? It would just be super sloppy in the corners. And when I go to a higher pitch prop, I make more thrust and that sharpens it up a little bit. The trade-off there is that I also get much shorter battery life and it's hitting the battery harder, right? Because you don't get something for nothing. So there's two directions you can go with a heavier quadcopter. You can use lower pitch props and accept the fact that you'll have worse handling but decent flight time, Or you can try to go to higher pitch props like a 51499, and you get much better handling, but at the expense of hitting your battery harder and getting shorter flight time. Now, not a lot of companies are making high-pitch props these days. Not a lot of them are doing it. It's not in style to fly high-pitch props. The other thing that is confusing is a lot of times, like this 51499, I don't remember the exact number, but the 51477, normally you would expect 5.1 is the diameter. So this would be a 5.1 inch prop. And then 4.9 or 499 is the pitch. That's normally the way props are spec'd. So you would expect that this would be a 5.1 inch diameter by 4.99 inch pitch. Now, I know the 51477 doesn't work like that, and it's super annoying and frustrating. So is the actual pitch of this prop 4.9? It says it is. So what I would say is try something like a GemFan 51499. See if you like it. This may not even be right, because like I've seen it happen before that the GemFan page says a different pitch than like that. Like Get FPV has just assumed the same as we would. Let's see if I can find GemFan's actual web page for this. Everybody says 499. Here we go. GemFan. What does GemFan say? Bingo! Bingo! I freaking hate this. I think we ranted about this on the news once. The actual pitch of this prop is 4.2 inches. Why does it say 51499? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. I'm annoyed. Anyway, there you go. 51499 is still a higher pitch prop than a lot of other stuff you're going to get. It's worth a look on a heavy quad. That's what I would say. Okay, there's our first question. We got a super chat here from BW. Will you be helping Bot Grinder's Dream FPV Park? Let's talk about that. One second. Wait, let me talk. That's a good point, Kickflip H. Let me just say one more thing about props for the Titan XL. The best thing to do if you have a heavy quadcopter is go to a larger diameter prop. So you're going to go, if you can go to a 5.25 or even a 5.5 inch prop, I think you're going to get a much better result than going to a high pitch prop. And Kickflip H suggests the Ethics P4 prop, which I believe is an even higher, a larger diameter. So I don't know if the XL5 frame will handle a 5.5 or a 5.25, but that would be another direction to go. Okay.
Check.
Let's talk about this. Bot Grinder wants to build, he's talked about this for years. He wants to build an FPV drone park. If you've been inspired by some of the flying that you've seen over at Portland, what's his last name? Eric. If you've been inspired by some of the flying you've seen over at the Portland Drone Park, then the idea here is that this one will be open to the public. Now these are, Eric Sakoff, that's his name. These are Eric's property is his private property, and you basically need an invitation to go fly there, which absolutely, the man, it's his home. He has no obligation to do anything there that he doesn't want to do. But Bot Grinder's idea is that he wants to buy some property, and build a public access drone park there. He wants it to have camping. His idea is that it'll have camping areas, so you could travel to it. You could camp there. Have obstacles. Have a little RC crawler park. He's got a lot of ideas. And he has started a GoFundMe. You can go to fpvpark.com, and it redirects to his fundraiser. Trying to raise $70,000 to buy property and start building this drone park. And the question is, am I going to support this? So the short answer is yes. I haven't donated yet. I will be donating. I don't know how much. I haven't decided how much I'm going to donate yet. He's at $13,000 out of $70,000. Now, one of the things Bachgrinder has said, and kudos to him for saying this, because certainly a concern that somebody might have is that they would donate money. For one reason or another, this would fall through, right? There's a lot, and that's not intended as a slam on Bachgrinder or anything, but there are just a lot of ways that a project like this could not work out. That's a fact. Bachgrinder has said that if they're unable to get the property for some reason, if anything goes wrong and they can't fall through, they'll be refunding all the donations. I think that it makes a lot of sense that you would sort of let GoFundMe hold those donations until such a time as you had lined up the property you were going to buy, at the very least. And then if you can't do that within a certain amount of time, you give the money back. That's an extremely ethical thing to do. And I felt a lot of relief and satisfaction when I heard him say that he had anticipated. Because I've seen things like this happen before. I'll hold myself out as an example. That I did a GoFundMe for my battery test machine years ago. A lot of people probably don't remember this. I raised $4,000 to buy a battery test machine. I was doing battery testing using an extremely simple, unscientific method, and this battery test machine would let me do more rigorous testing. I bought the machine. I did some testing. I did deliver for a little while, but I found it very difficult to source batteries. For a little while, like at one time, Race Day Quads gave me one of every Race Day Quads branded battery that they sell, like 40 packs. And I tested them all. That was fantastic. But it's hard to find. Get FPV did a similar thing. It's hard to find companies who will do that, though. And it's extremely expensive to buy all the batteries you want to test yourself. And so I felt like I didn't, although I did deliver somewhat, I felt like I under-delivered on my promises. And, of course, I had already bought the machine, so there was no refunding the money. I still have the machine, and I'm thinking about ways to continue to produce content with it. But that's an example of a GoFundMe where if you donated, you might think that you didn't get what you had hoped out of it. And that's always a risk. So at the very least, saying if we don't buy the property, we're giving the money back, that makes a lot of that's really good. This is I will be donating and I will be promoting this, and I would like to see it pan out. I will say I can immediately see all of the ways that this could fall apart. And on some level, that's because I am more of a skeptic than I am a sort of head in the clouds dreamer. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. It just is what it is. I've been involved in large organizations that had assets. So I was on the board of directors for Alchemy, the Georgia Regional Burning Man event. I was one of the founding members. For the first 2 years, I was the security team lead. And then I believe it was in the third year I became a board member and was a board member for several years. And so that's one example of a time when I was a member of an organization with substantial assets because, they sell tickets, they buy. They didn't have like a shitload. They didn't have $1 million, but they had tens of thousands of dollars going through their coffers, and they could buy things and they could rent things, and it was extremely challenging, and it was a lot of responsibility to find fair ways to use those assets to benefit the organization and to avoid situations where there was a perception in the community that the assets were being misappropriated or used in a way that the community didn't. Because there's always people out there who are going to be like, oh, I don't like what you're doing. And it's really tricky to manage that. And it's one thing if you put on an event once a year and you sell tickets, right? And then people can buy the ticket and they can go to the event, and maybe they had a good time, maybe they don't. But it's another thing if you're creating a destination that will always exist. Because at the end of the day, the assets that Alchemy owned were things like a storage unit, a box truck. But if you own a property, then there's going to be a question of who can come here when, and how can they use it? And if they want to do something there, who says whether they can or can't do it? And these questions are easy to hand wave at the beginning when there is nothing. When there is nothing but a dream, you put out the call and you say, let's all do a thing as a community. It'll be great. And a whole bunch of people come and they follow your dream. And eventually somebody says, hey, I want to do this thing. And somebody else says, I don't want you to do that thing. And then there has to be a procedure. Somebody says, I want to spend this money on this thing. And somebody else says, I don't think we should spend that money. I think we should spend that money on something else. And there has to be a way to resolve that. And if you don't have that going in, then it could be really problematic. People can really end up feeling like they got screwed over. So the way it sits right now, as far as I can tell, is Bachgrinder has the money. He will get the money, and he will decide what to do with it. And as long as he's the only one who's doing all the work, that's fine. But as soon as you start having volunteers help you, as soon as you start accepting donations for things, then it gets really complicated. And that to me seems like the biggest risk of a situation like this. When Bachgrinder said months ago, I want to build a drone park. It's going to be open to the community. It's going to be great for everybody to use. Everybody can contribute. And I was like, ooh, I've seen this before. I've seen so many situations where that language ends up meaning that a whole bunch of people do a whole bunch of work for free, and then the guy who owns the property keeps all that labor and benefits from it, and everybody else is like, cool, that was great, we contributed to the community, and don't actually get the equity that they deserve. And sometimes they're okay with it, and sometimes they feel like they got effed over. The more I talk about this, the more I wonder whether 3 years from now, people might say things about Bachgrinder that Bachgrinder and other people said about Rotor Riot. Because there's some parallels. There's potential parallels depending on how Bachgrinder navigates these waters. Maybe he also has had these same experiences and is anticipating these same problems and knows exactly how to deal with it. I'm not saying that these problems can't be solved. But I'm saying that if you go into this without knowing that this is going to happen, then it'll bite you. So, I'm going to finish up this topic. I've sort of been rambling for a while. I haven't been reading comments. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this. I think we're going to wrap it up. I would say this. I have seen so many times in my life someone say, I've got this great idea for a project. everyone give me money and labor and volunteer, but at the end of the day, I'm going to own the building. I'm going to own the property. I'm going to own the car that we all worked on. And you guys are going to get a community that you can... And then a whole bunch of people get screwed over and one person or a few person benefit. So whenever somebody says, we're going to make a community, come contribute and volunteer so you could be part of the community, I go, okay, but am I going to get paid for my work, or are you just going to keep all my work and I'm going to go and I'm going to have that nice satisfied community feeling? And I worry. And that's, frankly, a lot of people, I think of that at everything. Like when MultiGP has volunteers who help run the flight line. Rotor Riot Rampage has volunteers who help run the flight line. Anytime an organization that is making money has volunteers helping them make money and not getting equity in exchange, on some level I go, should we be doing this? And a lot of people are okay with it. And if they're okay with it, well, who am I to say? But that's my first thought. Okay. Anyway. Let's continue with the stream. Mad Max FPV says the only way Bot Grinder can let people down is not returning the money if he fails to raise enough. I disagree. And again, I don't want to focus on all the ways this could fail, but that's kind of where my mind goes. Let's say Bot Grinder raises the money, buys the property. Now Bot Grinder owns a piece of property. Now, next up, we got to build an FPV park. Oh, shit, it turns out that also costs a lot of money. Go ask Eric Sakoff how much money he has in his... he gave a number. Eric Sakoff, the builder of the Portland Drone Park. What do you mean? It's just some lumber in the trees. He quoted a number in the tens of thousands of dollars for how much he had invested in those obstacles. Never mind that he also owns an excavator and other heavy machinery that he uses to put the stuff up. So Bot Grinder could buy the property, be unable to deliver on the promise of the park. I mean, there's a lot of ways this could go wrong. There's a lot of ways it could go right. I'm focusing too much on the money. Sorry, Drone Shots Berlin. I respectfully say that I'm focusing, that everybody else doesn't focus enough on the money. I am annoyed at how often I think everybody else doesn't focus enough on the money. When somebody asks you for $70,000, it is 1,000% appropriate to focus on the money. Maybe it's a lot of, anyway. How do you know Bot Grinder is going to own it? Good question. He could put it in a trust and give it to the community. What would that even mean, Cohib? What would it mean to give it to the community? The community is not a legal entity. If you were to put the property in a trust, there has to be some way of resolving conflicts about the property. There has to be an entity, whether that's an individual, whether that is a board of directors. There has to be an entity that makes decisions via a defined process. Let's be really simple. Let's say Bot Grinder buys the property and puts it in a trust. And now someone says, I want to buy this property for $10 million. And someone has to say, yes or no, will we sell this property for $10 million? If the property is in a trust and it belongs to the community, who signs on the dotted line when they sell that property for $10 million? And then, how is that $10 million distributed and to whom? There has to be an answer to that question. You can't just give property to the community. That's not a concept that exists. And before you accuse me of being too focused on the money, That's just an example. Anytime there is a potential conflict over what to do, should we cut down these trees? Yes or no? Well, as long as we all agree that it's okay to cut those trees down, it doesn't matter. But as soon as a person who feels they are a stakeholder disagrees about what to do, if you don't have a defined procedure, even just a vague one, for how to resolve that conflict, you're going to end up with people feeling like they got screwed over. So you could have donors be shareholders in a 501c3 nonprofit, and you could have voting shares. That would be a thing. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but that would be a thing you could do. But the problem is that very often nobody thinks about this stuff. They just dive in, and it ends up with, and I'm talking from personal experience, it ends up with one guy happening to be the guy whose name is on the deed or whose name is on the title of the truck. And then when the organization falls apart because nobody thought about this stuff beforehand, it just so happens that that guy keeps the truck. Oh, and also, anyway, enough about that. Enough about that. We should be thinking about these things is my point. Okay, moving on. We're going to move on. I'm going to get some super chats. We got a bunch of super chats. SJ, thank you for a $2 super chat. How to store multiple drones with binds to the Tango 2. That doesn't make any sense, SJ. I'm missing some part of your question. Because you can bind essentially as many drones as you want with a Tango 2. So I don't understand why you are having a problem doing that. If I remember correctly, what Alchemy did was, I can't remember. It's been years since I thought about this. We said that the organization could be disbanded via there was a board of directors, and then there was a way. The community was defined as anyone who had bought an Alchemy ticket in the last so many years. And then those people had votes. And if you could document that you had bought a ticket, you had a vote. And then there was a procedure by which anyone who had bought a ticket in the last number of years could raise like a referendum, including disbanding the organization and dispersing the assets. So, anyway. SJ, I'm going to ping you. What are the steps, SJ, are you asking how to bind a Crossfire drone? I mean, binding multiple drones is the same as binding one drone. You just bind one and then power it down and bind the next one. And then whichever one powers up is going to be the one that is bound. I'll keep watching for your question, SJ. Here's another reason why the legal ownership of the property is important. If a drone hits somebody in the head and they lose an eye, whose name is going to be on the lawsuit? The pilot, clearly. The landowner, probably. Is the community going to get sued for that? No. There has to be somebody. At Alchemy, 1 year at Alchemy, one of the attendees caught himself on fire. The best explanation for what happened was that he was inebriated in some way, that he bumped into a tiki torch and was wearing synthetic fabric, that his clothes lit on fire, and he ended up being airlifted out and eventually died. And that was the most serious thing that happened in all the time that I was on the board of directors. And after everyone rendered medical attention, everyone got the ambulance in as fast as possible, everyone made room for the helicopter to land, everyone put 100% of their efforts towards taking care of this person. And then after he was gone, the very next thing we did was we went to the stack of waivers and we started looking through the stack of waivers to find his waiver, because we were like, we are going to get sued. We are going to get sued. And I was on the board of directors for that event. I was like, I'm going to get sued for this guy's injury or death. Thankfully, it didn't come to that. It was, well, we don't need to go into more details, but that was, it's one thing to go, oh, we're going to have a great community project and we're all going to get together and we're going to do this thing. It's going to be so cool. And then you start wishing you had your ducks in a row at some point. Anyway. It was a hell of a thing. Get it, Shark. Thank you for a $5 super chat. Your PinIO video saved me from having to break a DVR board in a fit of rage. Just want to say thanks. Thank you, Get it, Shark. Stevens Box, thank you for a $20 super chat. Thanks for your help via email. Is there a website where I can learn about FPV, find the best FPV products, and check if they're in stock? Godspeed. Stevens Box, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to plug my website. SearchFPV.com is the one we're plugging right now. It is a multi-store FPV search engine. We are continually adding more stores. Keep adding stores. You can pick the region that you want to search, or you can select all. And you can select in-stock only items, and it'll search these items for you. Titan XL5 we were talking about earlier. Let's see who has the Titan XL5 in stock. Well, it takes a minute to search this many stores, but... Oh. Nope, not many people... Oh, there's the XL5 frame in stock. That's what Search FPV is. Thank you for the opportunity. I will say, I guess I'm going to talk about this a tiny bit more. I will say that there needs to be a balance. There needs to be a balance, because at the end of the day, you would never do something like this if you started out thinking about all this bullshit. The beginning of an event needs to be one guy with a dream saying, wouldn't it be amazing if, and a whole bunch of other people who don't think about the ways it could all go wrong saying, yes, let's do it. And that's where you get the momentum to get over the hump. But then, once you're over that initial hump, you got to start thinking about these things sooner rather than later, in my opinion. Or people, and honestly, it is exactly because people don't think about these things that you end up in situations like Rotor Riot sometimes was accused of. Now, I shouldn't take that analogy too far, because I don't think that Chad Capper, who founded Rotor Riot, is a kind of head in the clouds dreamer who didn't know that these problems might come up. I think Chad Capper had enough experience that you could just, if you were to say, no, he should have seen this coming, I think that would be a fair claim. But the exact kind of arguments that I worked and I wasn't paid and somebody else benefited from my work and I was taken advantage of, that exact situation is exactly where you end up if you say, everyone, let's make this great thing. Don't worry about, let's just all do it. It's going to be so fun and everything will be fine. We're not going to write down how the money's going to go or anything like that. It's just going to be great. That's exactly where you end up. I don't know how much of that is why people like Steel and Final Glide ended up feeling like they got taken advantage of. But I wouldn't, it's plausible that that's what happened. Anyway. Savas Ionades, thank you for €5. A super chat, because you're helping a lot of people through your videos and live streams. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Shajik, thank you for €15. What motor do you recommend for a lightweight 75 or 80 grams, 2.5 inch 3S quad? For a lightweight, what I'm going to do is this. Now, this page is not live on my website yet. If you go to this URL, you will see this page. It's not live yet, so please treat it as a draft version. But we're about to release this toothpick page on my website, and we have some suggested motors here. So this sounds like, when you talk about a 2.5 inch quad in the 75 to 80 gram range, to me, that's a toothpick. And these are the motors that we recommend. And Ciati is the one who made these recommendations with research from the community. And if you have questions about that, he is in the chat right now, and I'm sure we'll be happy to weigh in. Now, I'm not sure if these are all tailored for 3-inch props, and that you might want a slightly different KV for 2.5 inch props. Ciati, what do you think? That's a good question. Ciati, are these all tailored for 3-inch props? Because down in the props section, I think we only have 3 inches listed. Yeah. So Ciati, if he was going to go with 2.5 inch props, should he get different KV motors? Sorry, I'm chatting about that. I'm making another chat about that about the buck rider thing, but I don't want to keep talking about it on stream. Ciati says they will work on 2.5 inch if you're doing 3S. Is there a reason you're doing 2.5 inch props and not 3 inch? That's a good question. The comment I just made, going back to the discussion about community projects, is I said the flip side of my argument, which is that you can't take advantage of volunteers, you can't take their labor and not compensate them with equity. The flip side is that in the beginning, there usually isn't any money. And so you literally just don't have enough money to actually pay volunteers a fair wage. So the only way to get off the ground is to take free labor from people who are happy to give it. And at the end of the day, there has to be somebody whose name is on the lease in case somebody needs to get sued. And that guy ends up being the one who owns the assets because he's just the one whose name is on the lease. And on some level, taking the risk of being the one who gets sued might be a fair trade-off for being the one who also legally owns the assets. So it's tough. It's tough. Lots of projects operate without equity. That's true, Mad Max. Lots of projects also unfairly take advantage of the labor of volunteers who undervalue their own labor. There's a... I guess I care a lot about this topic more than talking about FPV, I guess. There's a children's it's like a flea market. A whole bunch of vendors show up with like children's clothes and toys and so forth, and they all go into this like giant warehouse and they put out their tables. And it's here in Knoxville, and they have volunteers. And these volunteers do things like run the registers. They're employees. They have volunteers who act as employees. They are unpaid. And in exchange for working an 8-hour shift, a scheduled 8-hour shift, these volunteers get early access to the sale so they can buy the best stuff off the tables first. So in my opinion, this violates labor laws. That this company is they are violating labor laws. They are getting 8 hours of work for which they are required to pay a minimum wage, and in exchange, they are not paying these people. They are giving them an intangible benefit that does not have the fair value of their work. The fact that these people are willing to do it doesn't change the fact that they're violating the law. And it's not that I'm like a sucker for the law. Never violate the law, children. It's that I hate to see people working and be not getting fair value for their work. That happens so much in the United States. That people undervalue their own labor and are willing to give their labor away to some, because it's not like this children's yard sale flea market is a small company. They make a shitload of money. They need to pay their employees and not call them volunteers and take their work and not compensate them for it. So yeah, a lot of organizations work without equity. A lot of organizations abuse their employees and take their money without giving them fair compensation, and that's not okay. You can't turn an employee into a volunteer simply by going, wink, you're a volunteer, right? There are legal definitions for when wages are required. Okay, continuing on. Dion Potgeider, thank you for 14 South African Rand. Does different analog frequency give better range? Dion, some analog VTXs output more power on lower frequencies and less power on higher frequencies. The only way to know for sure is to buy a tool like the Immersion RC RF power meter. And then you will know for sure. So there is some truth to that. Mad Max FPV points out that some antennas are tuned better to some frequencies than others. That's true, Mad Max. It's harder to tell about that because you would need an antenna analyzer, and those are expensive. Cali FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. How would I go about storage charging a fully charged Tango 2 LiPo that I have to put away for a couple months? Cali, I want to start this by saying, if you use your controller every day, don't worry about storage charging the LiPo. It is true that leaving that LiPo at full charge is increasing its internal resistance. However, that only really matters when you're doing high current draw. And generally, the amp draw of a controller is not enough to make that a big issue. The bottom line is that it's not worth... Some people say, should I storage charge my controller at the end of every day of flying? No, it's not worth it. You always want to have your controller topped off so you can go fly when you want to fly. Don't worry about storage charging. Now, if you know that you're going to not use your controller for a few months, perhaps it would make sense to storage charge that battery. The Tango doesn't have a built-in storage charge function. So you could open the radio up and take the battery out and storage charge it on a charger. That's silly. Don't do that. What I would probably do is I would just turn it on and set the Crossfire to max power and then just leave it until it got down to 3.8 volts, I guess. That's what I would do. Guy with a name, thanks for €5. How does a TX16S AGO1 gimbal compare to a Tyrannus X Lite Pro? Do you think it makes sense to upgrade? Which is better for colder weather? I'm not even sure. Can you put the AGO ones into the X-Lite Pro? I think somebody has. I think that Taranis gimbals are pretty good. I've always said that the AGO one is more a aesthetic choice, that it feels nicer to use. It's heavier. It's more solid. Technically, it does have less wiggle at the edges, but I don't think that it's going to make you a better pilot. Taranis Pro gimbals are usually quite good. They're not like CNC. I don't think the X-Lite Pro has CNC metal gimbals, but I think the Taranis X-Lite Pro gimbals are pretty good. And I personally probably wouldn't go to the expense and the hassle of putting AGO 1 gimbals into an X-Lite. Now, I think if you're comparing the TX16S to the X-Lite, there are a lot of things other than the gimbals that would make me make that decision, like the form factor. Slaughter Bartfast points out there are a lot of model airplane fields and clubs around. This isn't new. Bachgrinder could model the park that way. 100%. One of the smartest things you can do if you are starting an organization like this is talk to other people who have done it and model yourself after them. That's 1,000% true. So if you look at model flying fields, usually there's an LLC, there's a board of directors, they'll have board meetings, there's a procedure for collecting dues, there's a procedure, and that would be great. And then at least you know what you're getting into. Now, a lot of people are, some people, at every flying field I know, some of the members of the flying field are less than perfectly happy with the way the flying field is run. And that's sort of going to be inevitable. But at least if you have a set of rules and a set of guidelines, then you know what you're getting into. You pay your dues and you do what you're going to do. That would be fantastic if it was set up that way. I would have liked to hear more about that, I guess is what I'm saying. I would have liked to hear more about that. Before I give somebody $70,000, I would like to hear more about how the organization will be structured. I would like to at least know that you thought about that. Whenever I see somebody saying, give me a lot of money and give me a lot of volunteer labor and it's going to be great because we're going to have a community, I go, uh-huh. Okay, maybe. I mean, I've done that. I do that shit sometimes. Don't get me wrong. But on some level, I'm also like, this is going to go badly. Max Cut FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. How do I find pilots in my area other than Facebook groups that are inactive? Small town MT is Montana, doesn't have many pilots. When is Rampage 23? Max Cut, Rampage 23 will probably be about the same time of the year that Rampage 22 and 21 was. Usually like the April-May time frame, I believe. As far as finding pilots in your area, I like to go to the MultiGP website. And what I'll do is I'll go to chapters and view chapters on a map. And then you said Montana. Now, Montana's a big state. It's known for it. Where is Montana? Oh, here we go. I knew it was up here somewhere. F you. F you. There's not a single multi-GG chapter in all of Montana. You are boned. Okay. Nope. Oh, that sucks. Oh, man. Well. Wow. And North Dakota also. Fargo's in North Dakota, isn't it? Just barely. Wow. I didn't realize Fargo was right on the border. That's fascinating. Also, North Dakota. F you. Wow. That's something. Well, that's tough. I don't have a great answer for you. For those of you who are in the European stream and don't understand the scale of what you're looking at here, because this is a European stream and Europeans often don't know the sort of scope of just how fucking big America is. Pardon my French. Pardon my swearing. Montana. Let's see here. Compare the size of two countries. Country size comparison. Can I do Montana? Can I do Montana? Montana, United States versus, let's say, Germany. No, I want to compare just Montana. No, it's around the same size. So Montana is around the same size as Germany. That makes sense. Montana is a little smaller than the country of France. How about the UK? Montana is 1.6 times bigger than the United Kingdom. Yeah. Oh, here's another good one. I know you're not stupid. Take it easy. I'm not calling you stupid, Evil Knievel. So Montana's pretty damn big. I don't know, man. I guarantee you there are other FPV enthusiasts out there. I don't know, especially in a state as sparse as Montana. I'm not sure how you're going to find them. Anybody in Montana? Colored controllers. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I wonder if you saw my email on Monday about sending you my Avada. I did. I didn't reply to it. That either means I'm thinking about it or I'm not interested. A lot of times when somebody offers me something, then I'm like, well, I see why that would be a kind offer for you to make. But I'm not ready to say yes right now, but I don't say no either. Thank you. I did see your email, Colored Controllers. Cohiba Matt, thanks for a $2 super chat. Simi FPV, thanks for 2 Swiss francs. Huff19, thank you for a $5 super chat. What tuning metrics should I tweak with if I have wobbles and instability and high throttle moves on my whoop? Wobbles at high throttle to me means P gain is too high. You could tweak TPA, throttle PID attenuation. However, TPA is already pretty high on Betaflight by default. If you're having wobbles at high throttle, to me, I mean, ideally, I'd like to hear audio and see video if possible, but that's not always possible. To me, that sounds like, and you're in a ladder, so I don't think you're necessarily having prop wash because you're not really descending. Are you descending, or is it only when you're descending? I would try lowering P gain a little bit and see if that helps. Marcel Off-Axis FPV, thanks for a Canadian dollar. Takumi Garage, thanks for $5. Can we please watch some FPV? That's not usually what I do on my live streams, Takumi. We don't usually do like a watch and react. Do you have something specific you want to see? And H3SS FPV, thanks for 10 Canadian dollars. I'm having trouble updating the firmware on my air unit. When plugged in and powered up, I can't get it to load a firmware list. H3SS, I can show you what to do about that. H3SS, this is a known issue. So good news, there's a fix. You need to go to my Runcam Wasp video. And here we go. Come here, buddy. Come here, buddy. What you want is could not load firmware error. H3SS, this is the fix. This is what you need, man. That's the fix. Willie wants me to post my toothpick URL. Since you're a patron, Willie, I'm going to post it in the Discord. The Discord server is open to patrons. Let's do a little plug here for my Patreon. We're about halfway through the stream. I've only spent 75% of it talking about the risks of starting big events without... but we talked about some FPV. Patreon. Patreon is a website where you can subscribe to me. You can subscribe to me for as little as $2 a month, or more if you feel like you've earned it. The amount you subscribe at is totally up to you. Patrons get access to my Discord server, where there's a whole bunch of channels for help with various things. You could talk about all kinds of things with other people. There's about 2,000, 3,000 members of the Patreon. A few hundred online at any given time. In addition, patrons get access to podcasts. If you like to listen to my live stream in podcasts, then you can get that. But mostly, you just get the good feeling of supporting me. If you watch my content and you go, dang, this guy really helps me out a lot, then that's the perfect moment for you to head on over and subscribe at whatever dollar amount is right for you. You can stop whenever you want. Anytime you go, I don't watch a lot of Bardwell content anymore. Just stop. Yeah, that's exactly right. If you are not there, if you're like, not yet, that's fine. I'll keep making content. You keep watching the content. Maybe that day will come. There is a link in the video description to the Patreon URL if you want to sign up. It's one of the best ways to support me. Super chats are fine. They're great. YouTube takes a fairly big cut of the super chats. And at the end of the day, I would rather have like $5 a month from you for the next 6 months than like one super chat that then I can't really count on super chats to pay the rent. You know what I mean? But Patreon, unless I do something stupid and piss off a whole bunch of people and they all unsubscribe, I have some kind of a Me Too moment or some dumb shit like that. Unless that happens, Patreon's going to be pretty solid. So it's actually better. I'd rather have you subscribe as a patron for a smaller amount and that I can count on you coming back every month than have you do like but at the end of the day, whatever works for you. Norquad, let's take a couple questions from the Discord. I'm not paying enough attention from the Discord. Norquad says, I bought some Fat Shark HD2s to fly whoops this winter, but the goggle has a lot of light leaks. Hurts my nose and I can't see the whole screen. Is there adapter plates or something that they can make them fit my semi-fat face? Norquad, what I would try is a different set of goggle foam. I am a big fan of the Newbie Drone Max Goggle Foam. Now, I can't promise you this will work because everybody's face is different. But there we go. Newbie Drone. This is a pretty good goggle foam. It's a little thicker than the stock foam and might help. I don't think there's another adapter plate or anything that would help with your face. Oh no. Look, it happened. Look, it happened. It reset. The fuck? The minute I start plugging my Patreon, we have a drop. Uh-huh. What's that all about? Look, do you see? Do you see that it dropped? Do you see that it reset? We had a drop off. Brilliant. I'm sure that's a coincidence. Well, we're going to keep going, but if I start getting a bunch of dropouts, I'm just going to end the stream because I hate, it pisses me off so much to try to stream when we're getting dropouts, okay? We've had a good solid hour. We're going to keep going. But if it starts getting a bunch of dropouts, I'm just going to say F it and move on. Okay. Okay. Seth Nordy, thank you for a $5 super chat. I just got into the hobby a month or two ago. I'm addicted. I'm also a Patreon member. What is better, Real Steady or Gyroflow? Seth, that depends on what camera you have. As far as the stabilization performance goes, I think both Real Steady and Gyroflow are excellent. I think you'd be hard-pressed to pick a winner. If you have a GoPro, Real Steady is clearly what you should use. Not that GyroFlow can work with GoPro files, and the beautiful thing is it's free. GyroFlow is free. So if you have a GoPro and you try to use Real Steady and maybe you don't like what it's doing, just use GyroFlow. You don't have to pick. But if you have a GoPro, Real Steady is my go-to. It works extremely well and it's extremely simple to use. It's just like you just import the file and you're like, click, stabilize, done. It's really nice. GyroFlow has a lot more configurability and a lot more flexibility in what it can do. If you don't have a GoPro, then clearly GyroFlow is the right way to go, right? It's really nice that GyroFlow can work with other sources of gyro data, which sometimes if you don't have a GoPro, that's useful. Rauk FPV says, I have both Real Steady and GyroFlow. I use GyroFlow more. Can't quite put my finger on it, but the stabilization is more pleasing to me. One of the cool things about Real Steady is that if you have stabilization turned on in your camera, you can still go into Real Steady and add more stabilization if you prefer. I was surprised about that. Usually if you stabilize in camera, then it doesn't work to stabilize out in post. The beautiful thing is, if you have a GoPro, you can use both. So just use whichever one you like. But my first stop for Real Steady is for GoPro stabilization is Real Steady, just because it's so simple. Just click, and if you like the result, then fine. If you don't like the result, then you might go to GyroFlow, but since GyroFlow is free, you don't really have to decide. Bova, $4.99. Wow, thank you for a massive $50 donation, Bova. Thank you for a massive donation. Just started getting into the hobby. You've helped me immensely. I had an issue with my RXSR, and now I do not, thanks to you. Happy flying. Thank you to Free Sky for making receivers that have all kinds of weird issues, because if it all worked smoothly, then I wouldn't have a job. So glad I was able to help you, and thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. Chian Duruer says, oh, hang on. That's not what I'm looking for. Sihan asks, do you have any words about Pixhawk and the cubes? For example, the orange cube. Have you ever tested it? I looked into this recently. The cube is a high-end flight controller for Pixhawk. And I thought about, well, maybe I'll do a Pixhawk build. Maybe I'll try out Pixhawk. I always have these ideas, and then I get super busy with other things, and I don't do them. I need to set aside some time for expanding my horizons and getting out of my... Well, now I'm flying Spang, so, that's nice. But the cube. I was like, okay, the cube, cool. Look at all these features. 3 redundant IMU, 2 barometers, 1 magnetometer, 3 different accelerometer gyro, redundant power supply with automatic failover. This is a ridiculous flight controller. And then I looked at how much they are. Can I buy it here? No, here, Robot Shop. Discontinued. Oh, well, fuck. Distance is the soul of brevity. Is it? I don't understand what that means. Oh, here we go. $485 for the flight controller. Oh, okay. So it turns out that this cube flight controller is for like real big boy operations. There's a reason they have redundant power supplies, redundant IMUs. It's for like commercial operations where you need full scale levels of performance and safety. I mean, nobody's going to put this in a hobby drone, right? $500 for the flight controller alone. Nope. So, you're like, what's my opinion of this? First of all, I don't really do shit with Pixhawk, so I don't know. But as I was thinking about should I do a Pixhawk build, this is clearly out of my price range. Like, everybody I know who builds Pixhawk says you should look at the Maytech H7 flight controller, which I'm pretty sure runs Pixhawk, runs RGPilot. And costs, $70 or whatever. I don't know if this is the exact flight controller that they recommend, but the Maytech H7 flight controllers I believe they can all run RGPilot, as well as Betaflight and iNav, so you really have your choice. And for a hobby build, if you want to get into Pixhawk, actually it's RGPilot, not Pixhawk, right? They're not the same. But they're similar. So if you're interested in going that direction, buy a Maytech flight controller for $70 instead of spending $500 on a Cube, because the Cube is for a $10,000 agricultural drone or camera drone or something. The Pixhawk Cube is but it's a fantastic flight controller as far as I can tell. It's state of the art, but it's so expensive it's just out of the range of hobbyists. Blown Stuff FPV has an interesting question. Blown Stuff asks, what are my chances of fitting a different brand bell or a same size and kV motor from a different brand? It's not impossible, but there's for example, on any 5-inch motor, you're probably going to have a 9x4x4 bearing, which means you're going to have a 4mm diameter for the internal shaft. Okay. The length of that shaft may differ from motor to motor. So the bell may fit down over the stator, but then have excessive vertical play. There's various ways that could go wrong, but it's, it's a coin toss. It might work. It's not a great idea. It might work in a pinch. Mystery D says we need a Caddx walnut review because everyone else sucks or doesn't understand YouTube compression. Mystery D, I don't have a Caddx walnut. Caddx hasn't sent me one, and it is not for sale, so I am unable to review it at this time. At this time, frankly, from what I hear, they're working on the firmware, and the results that the camera is giving right now are not as good as they should be. They actually delayed the release of the camera, and part of that, I don't know, but what I know is that, was it Albert Kim who released a review, and people thought, I don't remember, I'm not 100% sure it was Albert Kim, but I think it was. Albert Kim or someone released a review, it looked like shit, then he pulled the review and said Caddx is not releasing the product yet, maybe because it looked like shit, and now they're working on the firmware. So I wouldn't want to review it on firmware that is not final. If a product is for sale right now, I might do a review on a pre-release firmware like the Walksnail, just because people, if you have it in your hands and you're using it, then I'll review it. But a product that's not even released yet and isn't on final firmware, I don't see any point in reviewing it because the product you're not going to use it, so it doesn't matter. Pixhawk is a product that runs RGPilot. That's what I thought, Kickflip. But then somebody told me that Pixhawk firmware is not the same as RGPilot firmware. That Pixhawk is a fork of RGPilot that has different features. I don't know if that's true. That's what I thought somebody told me. Matt, thank you for a $5 super chat. What do you prefer, the Action 2 or the GoPro 10 or 11? GoPro. Ah! Here's the thing, Matt. I bought two Action 2s, two DJI Action 2s, with the intent of making it my primary FPV camera. I apologize that some of you have heard this story before. I'll try and keep it brief. Stinger Swarm flies the Action 2. Loves it. It's lightweight. It's relatively lightweight. It's durable. It has a great feature set. But mostly it's lightweight and reasonably durable. Phantom FPV flies the Action 2. Does Ladrib? I think Ladrib flies the Action 2. Many FPV pilots whose opinion I respect fly the Action 2 and think that it's fine for freestyle. Not for cinematic stuff. I think they would agree that it's not for like cinematic. You wouldn't use it to deliver content to a customer for a cinematic, for a commercial or something, but it's the durability and the lightweight make it great for freestyle. I wanted to be in that boat, but the dynamic range and the exposure algorithm of the Action 2 were just unacceptable to me. It has very poor dynamic range, which means that shadows are dark and black and you don't get shadow detail. And the exposure algorithm is so slow to change that when you go from dark into light, it's just ridiculously underexposed for a full second or more. And I just like, I hate this. I would look at the footage, and I gave the footage to Fabio, my editor, and I said, Fabio, can you do the best color grades you can from this? And he was like, okay. And he color graded it the best he could. And I was like, no, this is unacceptable to me. I fly a Hero 8 now. If I had to pick between an Action 2 or a GoPro 10, I would choose the GoPro 8 because it's a little bit lighter. Or I would choose an 11 mini. But I don't like the image quality of the Action 2, and I can't tolerate it. Now, you might be able to. And if you value durability and weight over image quality, then it might be a great choice. But I just could not tolerate it. And I was like, forget it, can't do it. Raven187, thank you for $2 Australian. What % of the community is flying Express LRS now? Good question. How would we even answer that question? I mean, we could do a survey here, but it sure as hell won't be scientific, right? Whoa, start a Q&A. Answer. What is this? What is this? Hang on. Start a Q&A. I'm doing a Q&A. What is this feature? Start a Q&A. What is this new Q&A feature? What does it do? Oh, I can ask a question and you can answer? Is that how it works? No, that's interesting. Wait, where did the chat go? Oh, look at that. Answer viewer questions live. Live chat. All messages are visible. Is this just like a separate chat? I don't know what it does. This just looks like another chat. So we've got the live chat here, but you could put your questions in the Q&A. Oh, that's fascinating. That just seems like a disaster. I think that's going to just... It's just a separate... Is it just a separate chat window for questions? No one will... I want to know what this looks like from your perspective. Hold on. Let's go to an incognito window and let's look at this from the viewer's perspective. What does that look like? Oh, good, a commercial. That's good. So, I can ask a question and you see it at the top of the chat. And then you can answer the question. How do I answer the question? Why can't I? Oh, because I'm not logged in. Oh, that makes sense. Sign into chat. That's interesting. It's not really for you It's not really for you to ask a question. I can ask it's like a thread. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Thank you for tolerating me playing with that real quick on the stream. I've never seen that before. I was going to do, let me end the Q&A. Okay. Confirm. Remove all questions. I don't really fully understand that, but okay. We might be able to play with it. Nobody can see each other's questions. Oh, that's interesting. You guys can't see each other's questions. Only I can. I think that just doing it in the chat is the right way to do it so far. There is a small button with ask something. It's like a private question thread. Well, I think we're doing fine with just putting the questions in the chat. What control link do you use? Well, completely unscientific. Free Sky, Spectrum, Fly Sky, etc. Do you primarily use? Because obviously people could have more than one. Crossfire, Tracer. How many options do we get? There's only. So I guess Ghost is going to be knocked out. Ghost is, I think, not that popular. But I can only have 4 options. All right, we got a poll up. It's a completely non-scientific poll, but you can answer it, and we'll look at the results in a little bit. Okay. Isaac Schultz, thank you for a $5 super chat. Beta FPV Lite 2.4 gigahertz receiver won't go into bind mode with the power cycle method and won't start blinking fast for Wi-Fi mode either. Beta FPV. I don't know if this is a beta FPV problem, but I happen to notice that it's beta FPV. So the power cycle method will not work if the receiver has ever been flashed with a binding phrase. Okay? And the Wi-Fi method can be disabled. So perhaps this receiver was once flashed with a firmware that gave it a binding phrase. However, there is a workaround, I think. Does this have a button? Does it have a button on it? Does it have a bind button? No. Frick. I don't. I'm so annoyed. If I was in your situation, so if your receiver has a bind button, you can hold the bind button down while powering on, and it'll go into that'll force it to go in Wi-Fi mode. DM4DS Sander, is there a way you can force this receiver into Wi-Fi mode? I'm wondering, Sander, if you're thinking of bootloader. I'll give you a second to respond. Somebody says that we should keep we shouldn't have Tracer in the poll. I think Tracer is more common than Ghost. So that's why I left Ghost out. Sander is responding about. I know that on the receivers with a bind button, if you hold the bind button for 5 seconds on power up, it goes into Wi-Fi mode. That may be only ExpressLRS 3.0. So I think you gotta flash it is the bottom line. You gotta flash it maybe with an FTDI adapter as an extreme option. I would try to flash it via pass-through since it's already soldered up. I would try to flash it via pass-through, but whenever I've got an ExpressLRS receiver that like is not behaving how I want it to, the answer is always flash it. Raven187 points out, if the receiver is on a UART that is pulling the TX line low, it won't go into Wi-Fi mode. That's interesting. It may be going into bootloader mode. Beta FPV has a flashing accessory that is worth getting. Is that gonna work? Beta FPV has this tool, which it might be worth having. It's the Express LRS recovery dongle, and can be used to flash an Express LRS receiver that is not behaving. If you have an FTDI adapter, it's the same thing. You may need to solder the bootloader pad on the receiver in order to force it into bootloader mode. Those are some things you could do. Says here that thank you for that information. So bridging, I'm being told in the chat that bridging these two pads with solder will force the receiver into bootloader mode, and that will let you flash it with an FTDI adapter. Toady RZ, he's saying it doesn't go into Wi-Fi mode. Maybe he's not waiting long enough. You might have to wait up to a minute for it to go into Wi-Fi mode. I'm surprised it won't go into Wi-Fi mode, though. Isaac Schultz. Yeah. So I would try to flash it via pass-through, first of all. And then if that didn't work, I would flash it with an FTDI adapter. The recovery dongle is just an FTDI adapter. There's nothing fancy about it. We're going to end the poll, and we see the results of the poll. The results of the poll are Express LRS 46%, Crossfire 40%, Free Sky, Spectrum, Fly Sky, etc. 11%, Tracer 0%, and I think we can assume that Immersion RC Ghost would also be 0%. Let's do another poll. I'm going to do one more poll. Do you have at least one quad with a Ghost receiver in it? Yes or no? Let's see how that one comes out. I would answer yes. I have a couple of quads with Ghost in it, although I am moving toward Express LRS more and more. Willie says, I still love Crossfire because it's reliable and easy to use. The only downside is the big antenna. Crossfire is reliable. I find Express LRS to be reliable. It's less easy to use. I am more and more annoyed by the Crossfire binding firmware update problems. Every time I turn a quad on that I haven't used in a while, I have to wonder whether I'm going to have to go through the frickin' rigmarole with emergency recovery on the receiver. I don't know if this is an issue that they have fixed and I just am updating my firmware, but like, it seems like more often than I would like, I turn on a quad, the receiver is not bound, it won't do a firmware update, and I have to do emergency recovery and, do that nonsense, and 10 minutes later I'm bound. But for Crossfire, which is, the advantage is that it's easy to use, it is annoying to have to go through that nonsense. Then again, a fair amount of the time I turn on an old Express LRS quad and it's got an older firmware and I have to do the Wi-Fi update, which is also not a trivial amount of problem. So I suspect when I get all of my quads updated to 619, Crossfire 619, I will not have this issue anymore. I think there was a run of firmwares where they had problems with the firmware binding and needing to reflash and stuff. Is Express LRS reliable for long range? Yes, 100%. Wesley Vardy has had Express LRS out to 30 plus kilometers. Other people have had it further. I mean, there's no doubt that 900 megahertz, that the lower frequency will be better at getting around obstacles. So if you have a hill or a mountain that you might need to refract around a little bit, 900 megahertz will be better. Of course, Express LRS also runs on 900 megahertz, which everybody seems to forget, including me. But Express LRS 2.4 gigahertz, as long as you know what you're doing, has plenty of range. And anytime you're doing long range, you need to know what you're doing. Evil Knievel is leaving. I can't decide if they're flouncing because of something that was said in the chat. I don't know. Let's check this poll results here. Do you have at least one quad with Ghost receiver in it? 238 votes, 5% of 238. Let's just check that number there. Is 12 people. 12 people in the chat have a Ghost receiver, at least one. Okay. ELRS does have a bind button. Some receivers do have a bind button. Empire, I think in the Discord asks, I popped my second 24-volt PSU due to overload. Can you recommend me a PSU that's high wattage and isn't super loud like the usual server PSUs? Empire, any decent PSU should not pop when you overload it. It should shut down safely. You're buying shitty Chinese PSUs, to put it bluntly. And you might be saying, but Bardwell, I didn't buy a shitty Chinese power supply. Well, I went to Race Day Quads, and I bought the Race Day Quads power supply. That's a shitty Chinese power supply. They know it. They know that these like 3% of these will just die. They just give you another one and say sorry. So if you bought the Race Day Quads power supply, and you overloaded it and it popped, at least ask. Go back to support and say, look, I bought your power supply. I just was charging one day and it died. There's a chance that they'll go, yeah, no problem. We'll send you another one. If you bought it off of Banggood Empire, you're out of luck. If you're gonna buy shitty Chinese power supplies, buy them from a vendor that will have your back when it dies. So, but you want a good 24-volt power supply. I don't know, man. I mean, would you consider this one? It's only 360 watts. You need more than 360 watts, huh? I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to end up doing an Amazon search, but you're more than capable of doing that, so I don't want to, insult your intelligence. I would go with a server supply. I mean, that's the way to do it. I would go with a server supply. I know they're loud, but they're good. They're good quality. Dell Power Edge. This is going to be a 12 volt though, isn't it? That's going to be a 12 volt. I'm pretty sure. Not a 24 volt. Output wattage. What's a fucking... What's a 12 volt? I'm sure it's a 12 volt. They all are. What the F? It's... okay. I'm pretty sure that... I mean, that's 1100 watts. You just have to modify them to get 24 volts out of them. If you don't want to do any modification, then you're going to end up with something like... Ooh, look at that. Single output DIN rail. 24 volt, 5 amp. What's only 120 watts? That's not good. 480 watts. Anyway, that's where I would end up. I just end up looking through something like this and trying to find a good one. But if you want something that's not cheap Chinese garbage, buy a server supply. That's my advice. Because, like, if I search for a 24 volt, 1000 watt power supply, here we go. There you go. Look familiar? That's the same. I mean, maybe this one will be fine. Is modding a PC power supply worth it? No, not in my opinion. If you already have a PC power supply that you want to mod, okay. It's not cost effective to buy a PC power supply and then mod it. It's better to just buy... Can we find a Meanwell? Can we find an actual Meanwell? That's this. So Meanwell brand is usually a good deal. You can see it's $200. Meanwell is, here we go. Yeah, I don't like that, the way those lugs are. Oh, here it's sold from Progressive RC. So this is the next step up in terms of quality, is Meanwell brand. So that's probably, if you don't want to do a server supply, this is going to be lower quality than a server supply, but better. Yeah, Rain Motorsports, that's exactly right. Meanwell is decent, but it's like picking the king of the trash pile. It's pretty good, but is it really what you want? Meanwhile, if we go to Mauser and we try to find a... let's see if we can do better. Output voltage is 24 volt DC. Output power is... How high can we go? Output power is 1 kilowatt. Number of outputs, one output is fine. There's no household options, only industrial and medical. Traco power. See, I'm not even sure these are better. Honestly, I'm not even sure. But you can see they're in the hundreds of dollars a piece. They're more than twice as much as the Meanwell. So, there you go. I would go with a server supply. I think that's the best way to go, personally. If you don't want to mod a server supply, the Meanwell is the best place to go. Oh, we're hanging in there. We only had one dropout during this stream. That's nice. We're hanging in there. Jesse FPV says, I have both the Holybro Kakute H7 and the Kakute H7 V2 with the BMI 270. Which should I put on my main quad and which should I put on my backup? Jesse, my opinion is it doesn't matter. Both of them are fine. They perform very similarly. Willie, what is MSPVTX? I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. Apara asks, where can I get information on modding a PC power supply? Apara, there's a million tutorials about this online. I just searched for, I don't even need to put mod in there. PC PSU 12 volts. Oh. I guess I do need mod. There's a million tutorials about how to do it. And so I would just refer you to those. I'll give you the search result. You find one that you like. Oh, I can't do that. I have to shorten the result. Do you think a 12-volt PSU is needed to get a lot of wattage out of your charger? Empire, I think a 24-volt PSU is ideal. Assuming that your charger takes up to 24 volts. Some chargers only take 19 volts, for example. A 12-volt power supply may not be able to run every charger at its max output because the input amp rating of the charger will restrict it. I always go for 24 volt. And I try to buy chargers that take 24 volts or higher input. It means that the input amps are not as high, because higher voltage equals higher wattage at lower amps. So if you're running at 12 volts, you're going to need twice as many amps to get the same wattage as if you're running at 24 volts. And that means your wires are going to heat up, your XT60s are going to heat up. You should always run at a higher voltage if you can. You can do fine on a 12-volt supply. Many people are only charging at 100 to 150 watts. At that point, 12 volts is fine. But if you know that you're charging at 300, 400, 500 watts or higher, you should be on 24 volts, and you should focus on finding a charger that accepts 24 volts. DC says, it would be rather straightforward to series two 12-volt server power supplies. Yes, I have a tutorial about how to do that, DC. You just have to isolate the high side of one supply from case ground, which you can totally do. Oh, I see. MSPVTX is the new function that lets you control your video transmitter over MSP instead of smart audio. I have not tested that at all. I have not tested that at all. Any news about the WTF hack? No. What kind of news should I be looking for? Is there some news? Don't, Luis Hurtado, it's risky to parallel two power supplies that aren't designed to be run in parallel. Luis Hurtado says they have two ready-made RC 400-watt power supplies in parallel. The problem, Luis, as I understand it, is that if one of the power supplies is slightly higher voltage than the other, which probably it will be, there will be a small amount of current flow from the output of one to the output of the other, which can damage them over time. And when power supplies are designed to be run in parallel, then there are various things that are done to make that not happen or to not hurt them. But if you just take two 24-volt power supplies and wire them in parallel, you can end up in a situation where you damage one of them. Whichever one has the lower voltage will have current basically going into the output or something like that. I don't actually know the reality of it. So when I looked into this a while back, because I had the same idea. Yeah, just put them in parallel. People said one thing you can do is you can have the one power supply calibrate itself to match the voltage of the other, so that they will have close to the exact same voltage and there won't be current flow between them. That you shouldn't just take two power supplies that are nominally 12 volts, parallel them, and expect to get good results. maybe you get good results. What I would do if I had two power supplies that I wanted to parallel is I would just get a second charger and run two chargers off of them and not parallel them. Ciati wants to know how many people have had problems with the Rush Tiny Tank VTX. That's an interesting question. Let's try our new question, our Q&A feature. I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to try it. Let's see what you guys say. Can a 2306 motor run a 6-inch cinematic drone? Monkey, thank you for 249 euros. The short answer is yes. 6 inch is not ideal on a 2306 motor. It would be better to have something in the size of maybe a 2208 or a 2407 or even a 25 millimeter motor is going to be excellent on a 6-inch prop. But a 2306 motor absolutely can do it. And especially a cinematic drone where you're not going to have a ton of high-speed moves that need a lot of responsiveness, it'll probably be okay. Sandra Dubronner. A very good suggestion. Sandra Dubronner has a suggestion for a power supply. 28 volts, 1200 watts. Are you joking? $65. Are you joking? That's extraordinary. How? How? That's suspicious. That's a fantastic price. What the hell? Wow. That's ridiculous. That's a find. Sandra, thank you for that suggestion. That's a fantastic buy. That, like, I can't think of some, I mean, and this looks like used telecom equipment, so it's presumably excellent quality. That's really extraordinary. Oh, and it's passively cooled, so there's no fan. Oh, that is, I mean, surely it needs a fan if it's running at 1200 watts. Is 28 volts safe? That depends on your charger. That depends on your charger. Your charger's probably rated for 30 volts or higher, though, so it's probably fine. You should check. Interesting. I mean, does it need a fan if you're running it at full tilt? It can run at 1200 watts and not need a fan? It's for real? Any news about the DJI VTX? Leonid Kraljevic says. I don't know, Leonid. Mads Tech put up a community post saying he thought it was coming soon. I don't know why he thinks that. He often has reliable sources. There has been some sort of rustling of the leaves of people who think that the DJI 03 Air unit is going to come out soon. I haven't heard anything, and I don't know anything. No fan needed. Sheesh. That's $65. Jeez. That's extraordinarily good price. This is a real find. We're going to post this. I don't know where I'm going to post this. This is going to be so worth having. That's two separate pieces. Is the heatsink two separate pieces? 2 items per lot. Wait a minute. No. Oh, it's 2 of them. That's the... Okay, now my mind is blown. One of these for $65 would be extraordinary. 2 of them for $65. Like, that's the same price as the shitty 400 watt supply from Race Day Quads. Holy crap. It can't. That's unbelievable. I mean, you cannot beat this. 65 each, but look, it says 2 pieces. 2 pieces. So buy one means 2 of them. That's unbelievable. Here you could get one for $32. Jesus. Well, this is the best news I've found all day. I'm gonna buy it. Like, if I buy this and then it comes on November 2nd, will they still be for sale? Sander, are these always available? Or is this a lot that's going to run out and it's going to be pointless for me to review it? More than 10 lots available. I'm going to buy this. This is preposterous. I mean, I don't even have to buy it. I'm just going to make a video about this listing. Sheesh. That's ridiculous. Shipping $40. I don't think that's true. Let me log in. How do I log in? Sign in. Just shut up. Shut up! I haven't used eBay in a long time. Alright, I'm logged in. Buy it now. No, I don't want a protection plan from Allstate. Oh, okay. Oh, that's too bad. It's $40 shipping. That sucks. You can't do better for shipping? You don't have an option? Okay, so you're going to screw me on the shipping. Well, then I'm going to buy more of them. If I buy 2 of them... Hang on. If I buy 2 of them, is the shipping still $40? I mean, that would... Oh, it's $68. Okay, that's less of a good deal. I don't know why the shipping... I mean, maybe it's heavy. I don't know. Estimated delivery. Economy shipping from outside U.S. That sucks. The shipping makes it less of a deal. So we're paying $70. That's still a pretty good deal, but not as good of a deal. That's not as good of a deal. $70 a piece for 2 of them, with shipping included, is still a good deal. Is it available from inside the U.S.? Can I search from inside? Can I search by geolocation? Can I search by inside the U.S.? How do I do that? From the Netherlands. Oh. Well, that explains a lot. Oh, all of these are shipping from the Netherlands. It's still a pretty good deal. North America. No, it's not available in the North America. It's only available from the Netherlands. Dang. Well, if you're in Europe, this is a hell of a deal. If you're in the USA, it's still a pretty good deal. All right. Did I just watch 15 minutes of Bardwell crooning over a PSU on eBay? I think you did. And we are 2 minutes from the end of the stream. What connector is on the output side? Good question. Sander Dubronner, is that a banana plug? It looks like a banana plug, right? Or a bullet connector. That's easy to adapt. BOGO connector. 4.5 millimeter straight. It's a 4.5 millimeter banana plug or something. No, you don't need a 240. Nope. No. Input 120 to 250. That's really standard for a power supply. It's good. This is great. If you're in Europe, this is a killer. If you're not in Europe, it's still a pretty good deal. Okay, folks, we're going to finish up. It's 1 minute to the end of the stream. We only had one big dropout. That's great. I will see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. Ciati is streaming now. And he's going to be doing 2.5-inch ripsqueak arm repair and the TP3 Vista pick again, and the ultimate Mobula 6 HD 0. So he's posted a link to his stream. Get on there and keep the streaming goodness going. But I'm going to get out of here and enjoy this lovely 24-degree weather. So warm and pleasant. What? Yeah, I'm talking in Celsius, bitches. Have a great stream, Siati, and good night. Goodbye, everybody. See you tomorrow, etc.